Let's kick 2017 off in fantastic style because we are here at the fantastic circuit back on British shores of Brands Hatch. This is the fourth round. We're already 1/3 of the way through then after this race of this, your Formula Renault 2.0 series. We are streaming live on iRacing Live and brought to you by Racebot TV next. It's going to be one of those races which is deciding who is going to take this momentum going on forward towards the halfway stage in the season. It's a crucial one here at Brands Hatch here on iRacing Live and Racebot TV. Qualifying just finished in the books. Jake Sperry joined alongside by Paul Smith. Your grid, though, looks like this as things stand. Ricardo Castrolado then pole position on a 1:18.434. He's just 2/10 off the world record as things stand, held by Govan Keeney. Boris Spolstra in second alongside. Daniel Liebert lies up in third position. Mark Usher, good qualifying for him in fourth, with Riley Preston fifth. Leandro Schmidt there in sixth position. Scott Newton for Apex Racing UK there in seventh, with a good qualifying for Charlie Summers there in eighth. Jan Schwieter ninth, with Darius Trinker there in 10th. And looking back down, Alexandre Osicic there in 11th position. Angus Waddell down the order, second in championship. He's 12th, with Fabrice Cornelis 13th. Then you got Brandon Eves, Scott McIntyre, Denny Wrights there with Nick Rowland, Michel de Jong, John Godfrey, Janu Rompelberg, Sander van der Velde, and then four cars that failed to set a time. Ollie Kvoker there with Jamie Wilson, David Waldock, and also Ricardo Lowry as well. Well, Paul, Brands Hatch is certainly one of those circuits where it does throw up the unordinary from time to time. Very undulating and all about that initial acceleration.
Yeah, it's a very difficult circuit to master. It's a fun track to race around. It's all about carrying the momentum through the corners here. If you can get a good run off out of the corner going onto the back straight, going down Pilgrim's Drop, then that's going to be a key point to get that slipstream. Use that, go down the inside to try and get the move done. But as I say, carry as much speed as you can through these corners and try and make the most of every little inch of this track, and because there isn't a lot of runoff to use around here.
No, there certainly isn't, and you also have to pay attention to Castrolado on pole. He was 3/10 quicker than anybody else in that Radicals online team. Of course, lining up alongside him on the front row is currently the championship leader in the form of Boris Bolstra there in the number 6 Scuderia Leone car there. His teammate is far down the order, and that is surprising. Just waiting for Leandro Schmidt then to get himself on the grid. He's got 10 seconds to do it, and he gets himself up on the grid, so now we start to just wait that little bit. Engine notes then gonna go up in the air as round 4 gets itself underway, and it's a slow start from Castrolado, and here comes Spolstra to the outside, championship leader, looking to go around the outside at Paddock Hill Bend. A difficult opportunity, but he tries to hold it, runs out of room, has to back out of it then, and falls back into line in second. Now the fence there behind as they head into Druid's hairpin, and there's nothing that can be done by Samuel Hebert. Now you got to look at Mark Usher trying to go through. He clips the glass a little bit, but at the moment here, it seems everybody pretty clean there through that opening stretch there, Paul.
Yeah, nice clean start from everybody there. Really tough to get a clean start through there. We've got drivers running wide. A driver off at the back there. I'll just have to find out who that is, but it's Charlie Summers. So great qualifying for him, but he's had a mistake down at Graham Hill Bend, but he's back up and running, no contact with any barriers.
Yeah, that's really crucial, but he did start 8th, and we're going to see some side-by-side action already. Alexandre Osicic looking at Darius Trinker then, here in the mid-pack of the field, tries to go for the inside, but that doesn't quite materialise for it. Side-by-side just ahead of them, though, you've got Leandro Schmidt there, who has just managed to be overtaken there by Scott Newton there of the Apex Racing UK team, now starting to make some gains. And you also look at Riley Preston as well, Mark Usher there, battle for 4th place on circuit, then head through Stirling's Bend, and now this is the final straight, arguably the last opportunity then in what is this 22-lap race to get yourself to the finish line. And you can see here just how difficult this aerodynamic effect is here, Paul, because already from what was nose to tail, there is at least a 0.3 of a second gap.
Yeah, you look at these corners, and there's quite a few sort of medium speed corners as Osicic now just going past down the inside of Paddock Hill Bend ahead of Trinker, and who's that behind? Angus Waddell as well, trying to go down the inside into joint and contact! Almost over there! Oh, there's more getting collected, and Osicic, well, he's nothing he can do here.
Well, that's taken Cornelis out of the equation. It's also taken Michel de Jong there out of the equation as well. Let's get a replay then up on screen, and that was just a case of being a little bit too greedy there, was the driver of Angus Waddell. Saw one, just didn't leave himself enough room there on the brakes, Paul, to really get himself there into that second situation. What it has done is completely opened up the mid-pack of your field and has left yourself a 5-car breakaway.
Yep, 5-car breakaway indeed, and well, at the front we've already got a bit of a breakaway.
Oh, Usher's gone straight on. Usher's gone straight on there at Westfield Bend, and he's lost the position there to Riley Preston. Now falls into the clutch of Scott Newton there, Paul. So you have to say, mistakes certainly coming aplenty in the opening laps.
And that's what you can get with this Formula Renault. You know, it's not an easy car, and on a track like this, it's very easy to just make a little mistake, get your braking wrong, a little bit of touch of grass maybe, and that'll send you off into the kitty litter. But able to keep going is Mark Usher. We know how quick he is as well in these single-seaters, especially in this Formula Renault, so I wouldn't count him out of a good finish towards the end of this race.
Yeah, certainly not at the moment. There's still a lot of opportunity to be there. Scott Newton there with Leandro Schmidt just behind. And now you're seeing this train start to develop here. Gap at the front is 0.8 of a second as things stand. Ricardo Castrolado at the front. Boris Spolstra, championship leader, second place at the moment. Now, Paul, looking at Castrolado, he's not had the greatest start to the season that you would have liked. You saw at Watkins Glen, got pole position, world record time in qualifying, but in the end, he just couldn't manage to do anything about it as he had a crash at turn 1. Now you look here, it's now round number 4 of the season, and he is still really yet to have that major challenge inside him, still yet to pick up that win, which we all know he's very capable of.
Yeah, he is very capable. He's a very talented driver in single-seaters and across the iRacing service. But really, with drop scores involved in the championship as well, he knows that, okay, he's maybe had a couple of bad rounds, but this is where he needs to pick it up and just go on a run now. He really needs to push on. I'm looking back at Brad and Eves at the moment. Him, Nick Rowland and Darius Trinker are all getting involved in a little battle here, and they've let in the guys behind of Rates and also Waldock to catch up to them, so it's almost a 5-car train here just for your last few positions in the top 10.
Yeah, and that is going to be crucial. You can actually see right now Nick Rowland coming under increasing pressure to the inside, tries Brandon Eves down at Paddock Hill Bend, and the squeeze is given on Eves, and he can't make himself get through just because he doesn't have as much inertia as the car ahead of him. Behind that, though, down the inside goes David Waldock then, as he tries to make the move sorted on Denny Wright, and he hangs him out to dry very comfortably, and he takes the position then on lap 4 of the motor race out of 22 as things stand right now, and that's a really nice little scrap, and actually one going on right now. Leandro Schmidt's found himself just ahead here of Scott Newton. They've fallen quite a ways off of Mark Usher, and now you can see Newton trying to get himself through here in this situation down into Hawthorne's Bend, but he doesn't have enough there, Paul, so he has to stay behind just for the time being.
It is very tough to make that move stick if you're not side by side with the car going into Hawthorne's there. So really you want to maybe set up the car through Westfield to try and get the cut back on the inside for Sheen Curve, and then going around Sterling's. Well, they're just having to stay one behind the other. It's one by one going through there. And well, the next opportunity for them, maybe get the cut back through Paddock Hill Bend up towards Druid.
Yeah, that might be the key there, but you can see Leandro Schmidt actually starting to pull away by a good 3-4 tenths gap at the front, still 8 tenths of a second as things stand, but now they're starting to break away that front two. You can see Boris Spolstra there has managed to manifest a 1.5 second gap then over Samuel Libert, who won last time out at the race of Okayama. And there you can see he's dragging Riley Preston and Mark Usher, who's gone off earlier on in this race so far. But you can still see here, yeah, Leandro Schmidt dropped 2 positions there in the space of 2 corners there, Paul. So what's just happened to him?
Yeah, he ran wide through Paddock Hill Bend, got it right out close to the barrier. He almost made contact with it, and that's allowed the drivers of Jan Schwitter and also Scott Newton to go past, although saying that Schwitter and Schmidt are going side by side down Pilgrim's Drop in towards Hawthorne's Bend, and well, Schmidt has got the job done before he reaches Hawthorne's, so good work there. And well, he'll now be he's be kicking himself for that mistake, but he'll now be focused on that car in front of Scott Newton, who's pulled away a little bit there.
Yeah, he certainly has, and actually looking at Angus Waddell just behind that as they head through the Sheen Curve, you can see Waddell starting to make some inroads here in this year. Let's get a look then on your top 10 and see where your biggest moves and shakers are, and well, Angus Waddell will be the big winner out of that one. He's +3 for the day at the moment here, and you also look at those likes who are trying to make some inroads through. You can see +1s here, +1s there. You can see now Schmidt under pressure then to the outside, tries Jan Schwitter, and the battle going on for 7th place on circuit. To the outside he'll try. Round the outside of Paddock Hill then, they touch, and into the gravel goes Jan Schwitter, and I have a feeling there, Paul, that he just didn't leave himself enough room there. He had so much on the outside that he could have exploited, but in the end, he tangles tyres with Leandro Schmidt.
That's the problem there. When you take that wider line in, your apex is a little bit later, and that's when the car on the inside is going to be drifting out a little bit there. So didn't quite leave himself enough room there, and as you say, around he goes. He's dropped down positions here, and well, he's now got David Waldock behind him. So really not ideal situation for Jan in this one as they go through Pilgrim's Drop and down the hill once again.
Yeah, they do, and actually running wide a little bit there is Riley Preston in 4th position there, the Evolution Racing Australia car, as they head through the Sheen's Curve. There was a little bit of questioning of side by side. Now you can see Mark Usher trying to find a way through, but you just can't get any sort of form of finding a way past here. That's just how good the accelerations of these vehicles are as they head now into clearways, otherwise known as that Jim Clark curve. And there is Mark Usher running a little bit wide, dropping a couple of tenths, but now he finds himself in range now as he looks to go on to lap 7, battle for 4th position on circuit. The leaders have dropped a little bit of time there. Boris Spolstra now back to 1.4 seconds back, and you can see Usher running wide and losing a little bit more time there, so mistakes creeping in there for the number 9 machine there, Paul.
You can run it right out to the gravel there, though, in this championship. So really, you got to use as much as much of the runoff as possible, and that's what each one of these drivers is doing. But Usher, it was just scrubbing a little bit too much speed through curve, and I think, oh, it's off goes Preston!
Yeah, let's get a replay then of that one, and that is a pretty big fishtail we just seen. Started to get the oversteer, tried to correct it, overcorrect it, not much he can do, and then he finds himself in the barrier. He has got damage on that rear wing. Put that into perspective. He's now behind Scott Newton, just how much the gap was. So now the question is, will Riley Preston come in this lap, Paul, or will he stay out and try and hold the tide? When we've seen this, though, he starts to become the driver that falls a mile down the order.
Yeah, we saw a couple of weeks ago how drivers can fall down the order. He's got damage to that rear wing as well as Riley. He's still putting up a good show here, though, behind Scott Newton. So I wouldn't count him out yet of trying to push forward, but that car's going to be handling a little bit rough now as they go into Clark Curve once again. I'm interested to see if he does drop back anything now as they go through these laps, as the laps tick by, whether his tyres will be wearing out more than the others.
Yeah, that is going to be a key. We've also seen here the driver of what was Jan Schweiter fall down the order just a little bit. That is something that we need to keep a small eye on later on as we keep on into this race. But for the moment, we find ourselves back in the action here, looking at exactly what has been going on. And we can see here, he's still got some cars pretty close. Still got Riley Preston then trying to run behind Scott Newton. And the thing about this damage here that he has, Paul, is that you look at the fact that he might have this damage, but yet again, as you can see, Scott Newton running wide there on the exit, you can still use that slipstream, and that can still become beneficial here, and you can still keep some pretty good lap time behind. As you can see, will there be a question of Riley Preston making the move? The answer is he's going to stay behind, so he pretty much knows that he's not quick enough in a straight line at the moment.
Maybe that damage has caused a few clicks of downforce to be taken off the rear of his car and making him a little bit more streamlined, a little bit faster down the straight. You don't know. Well, he's all over the back of Newton at the moment, is Preston, so Riley doing everything he can to try and get past, but it is a tricky place to overtake, is this track. It's not the easiest place to make the move stick, and you've got to be a little bit of bravery involved in this track to make a move stick. You can maybe dive it down the inside in towards Paddock Bend if you get close enough, but Newton has just pulled out that little bit out of Clark Curve, and I think it's those medium speed corners where that downforce, that damage to Riley Preston's car is just taking effect a little bit.
Yeah, it certainly is at the moment as we're on lap 9 here. We do have a few cars who are a few laps down and are out of the race. Alexandre Osicic there in the number 2, second time in 2 straight races. He's been out of the race. You've got likes of Fabrice Cornelis, who's found himself into troubles, and he's been really impressive here in this series so far. We've also seen Michel de Jong fall out of this race as well. He's now currently scored 4 laps down. And we got a car off here somewhere around this circuit, and that is pretty crucial, Paul. Who's gone off?
That's a very good question. I hope Will can tell us something. Yeah, we've got the car 19 off, so that is
David Waldock.
Yeah, he's been off, and well, big moment for him there. It was at Paddock Bend. He was going through there, just let the car go out onto the gravel there. It bounced, kicked up the back end round, almost took out a car, but everyone managed to avoid him. He got the car back up and running again. And, well, he's running further down the order now. He's behind Ollie Kvoka, down, it must be down 19th place.
Oh, that's a huge one, and that is the Cosmos. There's Riley Preston involved in that one as well, so we need to get a replay of that. Leander Schmidt there as well, so that's a huge wreck down at Dingle Dell, and there's a 3-car pile-up, and that has come about on one mistake there from Riley Preston. Turns himself around at Dingle Dell. He collects the car of Leandro Schmidt. He also collects a 3rd car as well in this wreck as well, Paul, so it's a big changer in this one, and it looked like for all eternity that it was all going to be safe, and it was actually trying to get back going again that the 3rd car gets involved.
Yeah, big mistake there, and I wonder if that's just that damage taking effect there. He's tried to get back onto the track, and well, it was a big issue, and in fact it was the car just losing it all himself further behind. So yeah, Ricardo Lowry just went off into the barrier himself there. But yeah, those guys, big accident, and well, that's pretty much the end of the day for Riley. He's in the pits, and so too is his protagonist Schmidt as well.
Yeah, and that is a big problem. We do have some side-by-side battling going on here. Jamie Wilson, John Godfrey, and you've seen a car off for potentially...
Charlie Summers, yeah, but he's a lap down already. He's had a bit of damage in his car, and, well, he's back up and running again. It was between Sheen and Sterling's, but he stayed out everyone's way, so he's still going.
Yeah, he's still going then at the moment. At the front of your field, though, the gap has opened up. It's now 1.8 seconds for Ricardo Castro-Ledo, who's done a 1:18.9 that last time by. And it's only the third time even, that he's forayed into the 1:18s. Now starting to find that pace, world record 1:18.2. I don't think he'll be able to break that one today. Spolstra in second, Liebert in third. Usher starting to close in a little bit here in fourth position. His last lap time, a 1:89. That's the same as Samuel Liebert here. So that gap, 1.1 seconds. He's now starting to get that slipstream a little bit, and anything seems to be possible here. As to think here, Paul, we're only halfway through the race.
Yep, only halfway through, and well, those guys at the front, they're pumping in the times. Really impressive from those two, really consistent. But yeah, you just look at that gap and you look at all these incidents that happened, just how it's spread out this field. And really, I'm just having a look further down the order. We've had John Godfrey and Jamie Wilson change position on this lap going through Paddock Bend. But that's really about the absolute closest battle on the track, and that's for 13th.
Yeah, we also have the battle one lap down. That is between Leandro Schmidt and Nick Rowland. Rowland's had a little bit of a wiggle. That's put him down the order a little bit. I see Sander van der Velde here at the moment without a rear wing. Not sure if everyone else can see that as well, but that is a massive key thing there for van der Velde. He'll really be struggling with that later on in this race. Currently, we only have 16 cars out on the leading lap as things stand at the moment, so a lot of dramas have already occurred here in this race as the gap opens up then to 2 seconds, but that crucial gap for the final step on the podium here, Paul, that is now down to 1 second exact.
Yeah, and Mark Usher's, he's got his teeth between the bit between the teeth. I get it right sometime, and he's got that sight in front of him, and seeing the rival that you're chasing down in front of you getting gradually bigger and bigger is such a it's such a little carrot that's dangling in front of Mark there, and it really eggs you on to push harder and harder to really close up that gap, to give you the opportunity of getting that place from the car in front. And well, Usher is putting Liebert under a lot of pressure at the moment, but Liebert is an experienced driver, and he can handle pressure well, but whether he can keep the top this pace up and whether he can keep Mark Usher behind, we'll have to see. They're going to go across the line right now. Liebert last lap was an 18.7 and an 18.7 for Mark Usher as well, so they're pretty much the same at the moment.
Yeah, and they're chomping on the bit. They were 0.4 of a second quicker than the two cars ahead of them, Castro-Ledo and Spolstra. So you can really see how much now they are starting to push here in this situation. And I think a 1:18.7 is the fastest lap of the race today. That one will go to Mark Usher then on quickest laps. Actually, something else to look at right now is Scott Newton. He's being hunted down a little bit, 2.5 seconds now the gap, with Angus Waddell behind, Darius Trinker there, and also Brandon Eves showing a quick turn of pace at the moment here in 8th position right now. He's currently up 6 positions on the day at the moment, and he is really starting to bring the gap down to 0.9 of a second between him and Trinker, and there is a lot of potential for something to close down in the last 10 laps of this race. So still a lot to play for here, Paul, but still a lot to play for, which will open up in the next few laps.
Yeah, it's going to be an intriguing one, is this one, and well, you can get this with races like this. You can get that little bit of field spread, but then if drivers look after the tyres a bit better, they can push on that little bit later in the race and really put drivers under pressure. And well, I'm just having a look at that battle further up for that final step of the podium. Liebert's going to come across the line now, does an 18.8, sorry. Well, Mark Usher does the same as well, so they're pretty much locked in at the moment in terms of pace between the two of them. And well, Scott Newton and Waddell as well. Newton a 19.6 and Waddell a 19.6 as well. So again, pretty similar pace between those two. But Trinker and Eves now, they're getting a bit closer here. And Eves, he's really got the sights set. He's got the target locked. And well, it's going to be a matter of time before he makes a move.
Yeah, and Brandon Eves has been really closing in that gap down to 6/10 and closing more and more as they head through Graham Hill Bend on lap 14. Now they're going to head down this Cooper Straight. Another left-hander then as they're going to go. It's going to turn up the hill here a little bit as they head through these off-camber left Asserties. Now they head themselves up towards Hawthorne's Hill. Pilgrims drop straight afterwards, and now you can see up the hill under the bridge. Now you duck back down, and you can see now as they head into the series of right-handers, there's only one left-hander from here towards the end of this circuit, and that's what's really interesting here about a design like this one, Paul. You see a circuit like this, it's not natural in the terms of, you know, you've got lefts and rights. It's not architecturally suited like that. It's more built around the land that's been given when it was created, so it creates this really unique feel.
I don't think it was created. It just happened to be there when people turned up the track. It's just absolutely fantastic as a circuit, and as you say, only 3 left-handers on this track. So really, you're doing a lot of right turning to maybe set up the car for those right turns more than the left to try and get the better run through the majority of the lap. Trinker, well, a 19.8 and Eves a 19.6. So again, Eves still closing up that gap in front, and Usher has caught up the gap a little bit now, 0.8 of a second between him and Lebert as well. So Usher just gradually making it up, but he's running out of laps now. We're heading in towards the final quarter of this race, and still plenty to play for all the way through your order, but it's Trinker and it's Eves that really is the one that we're focusing on at the moment.
Yeah, we are, and Brandon Eves took another 2/10 out of that last time. Libert also had a slow lap. He did a 19.1 that last time by. Compare that to the 18.7 fastest lap that Cash Oledo's just done. Very, very good work overall as you look at this battle between Trinker and Eves here. The battle for 7th position out on circuit, heading themselves up through Dingle Dell into the Sheens curve. They will come along. You can see Eves just unable to close that gap any further than it was. Catching is one thing, passing is most certainly another at the moment, but the gap opens up to 1.3 seconds though between Libert and Usher, as Usher has an incredibly slow lap. Gap at the front though is being very well managed here, Paul. That gap is still 1.9 seconds.
Yeah, Castroledo doing a fantastic job of just managing the gap, as you say. He's doing a great job. Look at this now. Trinker getting under more and more pressure here. Another 10th taken out of him by Eves. So Braddon, he's wanted to make the move now. He's right up behind the gearbox. This is now the time for some moves and to maybe just try and outthink the car in front. Try and outsmart him. Try and get them to take a tighter line into a corner to compromise their exit. You take that wider line, get the better exit out. You can get on the power earlier and get the run down especially down this straight. You can really make that move work. But at the moment, Eves just having to sit behind at the moment. He's not quite close enough, but he's in that draft, he's in that slipstream, and he's trying to use it to full effect.
Yeah, he certainly is right now, and you can see he's tucked up right underneath. As they head into Westfield Bend, the corner opens up, then closes just as quickly as that. An open letter, you could say, now up through Dingle Dell, up the hill, into the blind right then of the Sheen curve. Very easy, just to run that wide out of that corner. Then you head Sterling's, another medium speed, 95 mile an hour left-hander, before they get back onto the power again as they head for this final right of Clearways and the Jim Clark curve as well. You can see it's just not able to close in that gap enough, but he needs to find a little bit more. The gap when they last crossed the line was 0.4 of a second. That gap now as they cross the line is still 0.4 of a second. So Brandon Eves, although he has managed to try and close a little bit, that time he was marginally slower going through that bit of the circuit, and you can see just how much it means to these drivers as they head now into Graham Hill Bend again, Paul. You just see that Darius Trinker, if he can just keep that car on the straight and narrow, he knows that using the track to his advantage, he can pretty much try and hold it off for the final 5 laps of the race.
Yeah, if you know where to defend on this track, if you've done plenty of practice and plenty of races around here, you know the key parts that you need to defend. It's going down the hill here into Hawthorne's Bend. Another key point is going into Druids Bend as well at the start of the lap. Trying to stop the cutback around here through Westfield in towards Sheen is a crucial one as well. If you can get those parts of the course right and just protect your place at them parts, then the rest of the course it's pretty difficult for the other guy to make a move. So really, get those parts right, you can hold on to that position. But Trinker just running a little bit wide on the grass there, on the exit of Sterling's. This is an opportunity now for Eves. Look at how close he is. This is his best opportunity. He could maybe dive it down into Paddock Hill Bend, but if not, try the cut back through Paddock in towards Druids.
Yeah, that could be the big key then for Brandon Eves, and you can see Sander van der Velde getting out of the way, doesn't do it down to Paddock Hill, waits on it then just for the moment, closest he's ever been to the gravel. A little bit goes the driver there of Darius Trinker as they head into Druids, a little bit wide there, missing the apex slightly is Darius Trinker, but he does get himself onto the power and does a good job of getting away. Off of our cameras there, you can see as Brandon Eves runs very wide, and all that work has to be done again. We've seen a little bit of a slide through Sterling's from Mark Usher there. He just got himself pushing a little bit too hard, and it does have that potential to do that as he falls now about 3.5 seconds off of Samuel Libert. So at the moment, Mark Usher then, if he keeps pushing the way he does, he might not even get 4th place come the end of the race here, Paul.
He's got a bit of a gap though between him and Scott Newton as well, good 11 seconds there, so he knows that he just needs to take it easy if he's not going to catch up to that 3rd place. Scott Newton's far enough behind to not worry about, and well, Brandon Eves, this is another one that's maybe just pushed a little bit too hard, as he said, going through Graham Hill Bend, and he's just dropped back that little bit. You can see that he gets pretty close through this back section of the track, through the Grand Prix loop, but then through on the old circuit, the kidney ball, so to speak, of the Brands Hatch circuit of this part of the track. He's not able to quite get that move done. He keeps looking into Paddock Hill Bend, but he's not getting close enough. And maybe he just needs to try and get a run out of Jim Clark curve, make them go defensive to get that cut back, as I say, to then get the inside line for Druids. Because if you get that inside line, you've pretty much got the move signed, sealed and delivered.
Yeah, he really does have to get that. Although what you do see with Mark Usher is a little bit of damage on that front wing. His last lap time, a 1:20.1, certainly slow, but he does have that gap of 10 seconds to really deal with. Now he's continuing with Brandon Eves then, as he continues to try, by the way, past the number 20, Darius Trinker then, as they head down towards Hawthorne here. He gets close, but he doesn't quite get close enough then to put a nose alongside. Has to back out of it. And again, you can see maybe the car's not set up then correctly for this mid-corner sort of speed. Maybe he's good at that top speed, which isn't necessary, but actually looking at the front of the field though, that has come down a little bit. It's now 1.3 seconds between Castroledo and Boris Spolstra, so a slow lap potentially for Castroledo is one. He's done a 19.8 on his 18th lap of the race there with just a few to go. That's a little bit worrying, you could say there, Paul.
Worrying, or possibly just him taking it a little bit easier, looking after his car. Of course, you know, to finish first you must finish, and that's exactly what he needs to do. And well, yeah, he can afford to just relax a little bit, not too much though. 1.3 seconds isn't a big margin, so it'll be interesting to see how that one goes down. Whether Boris manages to get another quick lap. Maybe he's looked after his tyres in that mid part of the race and he's going on a charge now. We'll have to wait and see if this next lap is pretty much the same as well.
Yeah, that is going to be the key, but it does look like he is starting to open out that gap again. Is that number 1 Radicals online machine here? Ricardo Castroledo, 2nd place. Boris Spolstra of the Scuderia Leone team. And then you got Samuel Libert just sitting pretty in 3rd position. Did a 1:18.6 that last time by. A very, very quick lap then from Samuel Libert. So he's doing a very good job. We'll just check the gap then as they come to the line with just 2 laps to go then after this one. An 18.8 from Boris Spolstra, an 18.9 from Castroledo. 1.2 seconds, Paul, with just 2 to go.
I don't think he's quite closing up at the pace that he needs to the, and you know, Castroledo should hold on to that position. Just looking further down, Brandon Eves once again getting right under the gearbox here of Trinker, Darius Trinker, and this time he's going to look into the inside, into Paddock Hill Bend, and Eves, will he finally get that move done? Nice and clean, both work together, no contact, nicely done. I think Trinker gave him a little bit more space than he needed to there, and well, Eves finally, after staring at the gearbox of Trinker for what seems to be most of this race, has got ahead, now up into that 7th place.
As a whistle, clean as a whistle and clean as you like then from Brandon Eves. He now moves himself up into 7th position, +7 then for the day at the moment, and that has certainly been the one big key then that has kept himself into position at the moment. Trinker hasn't gone away by any stretch of the imagination. He's still there in case something happens as they head through Hawthorne Bend right now. But coming up towards the start of the final lap right now, it's your number 1 machine in the lead of this race right now. Riccardo Castroledo, last lap time, a 1:18.8. The gap back up then to 1.3 seconds. So barring a mistake, you could argue, they think that Castroledo might have the race pretty much sealed up as he heads through Druid Hairpin now, looking to move then into the next left-hander here. Graham Hill Ben at just 89 miles an hour gets himself all over that AstroTurf, which you are allowed to do before getting yourself back onto the Cooper straight into the left end of Stirling's Bend at the moment. And Spolstra, for all that he has been trying in this race, it just hasn't worked out enough for him. It hasn't meant that there has been anything to do with him then, as he couldn't close down that gap. Down Pilgrim's Drop into Hawthorne's Bend right now, into the right, 123 miles an hour, holding that speed before getting yourself back up the accelerator and into the next series of right-hand corners here. That was Westfield Bend, in through Dingledale, up the hill he will come along and into the Blind Sheens curve, and with just 2 corners to go, it's been pretty much securing himself, solidifying what has been a fantastically driven race from Castroledo, who has been one of those key factors. A former iRacing Grand Prix World Championship Series driver, he has every reason to celebrate as he finally takes a win here at Brands Hatch, and he becomes a 4th different winner, well, a 3rd different winner here in 4 broadcasted races on iRacing Live and Racebot TV. Spolstra will come home in 2nd position, just 0.8 of a second behind. Lee Bear will cruise to 3rd with Usher 4th. That race was pretty much decided there, Paul, in the opening half of that race when you saw Castroledo go away, but we still have some battling.
Scott Newton's dropped down, by the way. He's had an issue on this final lap here. And, well, it's going to be Waddell who finishes in 5th place, and Braden Eves ends up in 6th place. So what on earth happened to Newton? Trinker up into 7th. I'll have to have a look for you there.
Seen it.
But,
yeah, I've definitely seen it. It's a spin, it's a self-spin, it's a casually lazy spin down at what was Surtees corner there. Just looped the back end there, nothing really done. Had to get himself back going again, and that cost yourself 3 positions. In a championship as close as this, Paul, mistakes like those are very easy to do and also very costly.
And I can tell you what caused it. It's the fact that he clipped that curb. That curb on the inside of that corner, it unsettles the car. That sent him round, and he was lucky to get going again because he almost got himself beached on the curb on the outside there, but ended up finishing the race down in 8th place.
Yeah, that is a shame, with the last of the cars being Ollie Croker on the leading lap. Coming across the line now, let's get yourself your classified results up on screen then at the moment. Riccardo Castroledo becomes the 3rd winner in 4 here on iRacing Live. He takes the win by 0.8 of a second over Boris Spolstra in the number 6 Scuderia Leone car, with Samuel Libert in 3rd. Mark Usher will come home in 4th position with Angus Waddell in 5th. Brandon Eves with a fantastically sensational drive. He comes from 14th up to 6th. Don't count out Waddell there from his 12th to 5th, with Darius Trinker coming up from 10th to 7th. Scott Newton with a silly spin will come home in 8th position. Jan Schweeter there, quiet race for him in 9th, with Scott McIntyre running out the top 10. And then you got the likes of Denny Wrights there with Jano Rumpelberg, who stay quiet all day. He's up 8 positions to 12th. And then you got the likes of Jamie Wilson up 10 positions on his own little Maryland. And then you got the likes of John Godfrey and Ollie Croker, last of the cars on the lead lap. Then you got cars a lap down, Charlie Summers, Leandro Schmidt involved in that incident earlier on, Sander van der Velde without his rear wing. And then you got the likes of Nick Rowland, who's failed to finish. David Waldock there with Riley Preston, who expected him not to finish, with Ricardo Lowry there, Fabrice Cornelis, Michel de Jong, and also Alexandre Osadic as well. Well, we are going to take ourselves a very quick commercial break. When we come back, though, post-race coverage here on Racebot TV and iRacing Live. as well here from the Formula Renault 2.0 Championship. We've got a race winner here right now in the form of Riccardo Castrioleto. Riccardo, for you, it was a case of side-by-side turn 1 and then hold down the fort afterwards.
Yes, I have run. Yeah, that was a difficult race because Boris had a good pace and well, I had to keep concentrate and don't do mistakes. Well, I got a bit fortunate at the end because I did a big mistake that could have cost me the race, but luckily it ended well and I could finish this race.
Yeah, of course, you found yourself in a situation where that gap between yourself and Boris, the championship leader, was always there or thereabouts at around 2 seconds. But come lap 18, with just a few laps to go, you had yourself a little bit of an incident, dropped a second there in time, and that caused a little bit of a gap to close down, and you saw that race just start to become a little bit more tense. So for the final 4 laps for you, was it just a case of, just keeping calm and making sure that you're hitting all your markers?
Yeah, in the last 4 laps I only tried to keep the car on the track because I knew it could cost me the race, as I did a big mistake and I didn't want to repeat that, so it was just keeping the car on track, and fortunately that's what I did.
Fortunately, that is what you did, and well, for you, a slow start in terms of the championship, but now starting to pick up the pace, find some form, a second place followed by a first in 2 consecutive weeks. Do you think you can go back to back here and be only the second person this season to do so?
I don't know, we will see. I'll try to do my best for the championship, and if I can get it, it will be good, but I just hope to do good races and we will see.
We will see indeed. Riccardo Castrioleto then for the Radicals Online, a win from pole position. But unfortunately, that's going to be all that we're going to have time for here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. A big thank you to the drivers and everyone, except that we have just seen Scott Newton come in and Paul Smith will be standing by.
Yeah, just nicely timed that one, Scott. Welcome to the commentary booth. Bit of an interesting race for yourself. You started off in 7th, finished up in 8th, but it was certainly eventful for yourself.
Yeah, gents. Yeah, it was definitely eventful, especially in the first couple of laps. Having loads of people around me on quite a tight track, but yeah, thankfully I was able to get away with the net code at turn 3, and then just push on around P6 or 7. Then I saw Riley had an issue at turn 4. Managed to get past him and thankfully stay in front of him until he had another incident later in the race, and yeah, unfortunately just looped it on turn 4 in the last lap and nearly got beached. So I was very lucky to get P8 for that one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I did notice that that little bit of moment now. You must have your heart in your mouth, but when you got people putting pressure on you and racing hard against you, you look at how close this field is and how tight this track is. Yeah, how is it for yourself to just try and keep yourself in that good place in your mind to not let any pressure from behind get to you?
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of confidence breathing and all that sort of thing, but also placing the car where the car behind can't make a move up the inside, but also try and stay quick, so allow the guys behind not to catch up, but then also the people in front not to get further away. So yeah, it's also a lot of balancing throughout the race, and it was actually quite slippery as well, so a few little mistakes from all the drivers today, and including myself as well, a few little half spins as well. So yeah, just also managing the gap. I was noticing that Angus might have had a bit of damage or something like that throughout the race, so yeah, I was holding position in 5th until that unfortunate spin.
Well, we'll head on to Interlagos next week, a track that you enjoy. How do you think you'll fare?
I think much better. A lot more confident around there. Done a lot of races there, both in open wheelers and in GTs, so hopefully go well there.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us, Scott, from Apex Racing UK, and well done on eventually getting that 8th place.
No, it's cheers, fellas.
Well, once again, we will try again here. It's all we're going to have time for here this evening. And thank you to the drivers, to everyone who's been watching at home. That's been Paul Smith there beside me. That's been Will Vincent behind the cameras. I've been Jake Sperry, and in 1 week's time, we'll be back here live at Interlagos. You also got to remember, the Raw before the 24, 2 hours and 24 minutes of pure action will be coming to you this weekend. And next week is going to be amazing, because the first of the World Tours comes to effect. The 24 hours of Daytona will be coming to you. Well, it might be next week, it might not, but you can see a lot of things happening. Big thank you to everyone, so we will see you all in the future.